Hello, welcome to the group video presentation for John Kudzig, Scott Duval, and Aaron Light. I'm Scott, and today I'll be talking about Jewish resistance during the Holocaust. So often we hear about the horrors of what the Nazis did to the Jews during the Holocaust, but what we don't often hear are the stories of those who decided to fight back. This is Tuvia Bielski, the second youngest of four Jewish brothers who managed to escape from the ghettos that had arisen as a result of the German invasion of the Soviet Union. They and 13 other fugitives began to construct an underground village far in the Naliboki forest of Poland, with Tuvia leading them, as he had possessed the most military knowledge. Their primary goal was to rescue as many surviving Jews from the surrounding ghettos as they could, sending emissaries to infiltrate the ghettos and to recruit new members. Soon, more than 1,000 people belonged to the group, which became known as the Bielski Partisans. Their camp expanded to include a hospital, school, kitchen, and even a nursery, as well as other fully functioning facilities. The Bielski Partisans also conducted sabotage missions, disarming Polish partisans and participating in clashes between Polish and Soviet forces. Many of the non-combatants in the group were women, children, and the elderly, and total 1,236 Jews were rescued from being killed by the Nazis between the years 1942 and 1944. In 1944, the group was disbanded when that area of the forest was taken away from the Germans by the Soviets. The Bielski Partisans are not the only group of Jews who resisted the Nazis. When the Germans began the liquidation of the Warsaw ghettos in 1943, on the eve of Passover, a group of young Jewish men and women, using very little ammunition, held out against a far superior German force. The Germans responded by systematically burning down the buildings. The Jewish defenders of the ghetto fought for a month until the Germans finally succeeded in gaining control. There were very few survivors. The uprising had been led by 24-year-old Mordecai Anielewicz, who died along with his people. This is an excerpt from his last letter. I cannot describe the conditions in which the Jews are living. Only a few will hold out. The rest will die sooner or later. Our fate is sealed. In all the bunkers where our comrades hide, you cannot light a candle through lack of air. The main thing in my life's dream has come to be. I had the privilege of seeing the Jewish defense of the ghetto in all its greatness and glory. For Mordecai Anielewicz, the very act of resisting, fighting back against the Nazi war machine, was highly significant. The fact that the ghetto fighters had held out for a month against the brutality of the German army was success in and of itself. As news of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising spread, it served as an example and inspiration for Jews in other ghettos and camps. There were many other uprisings in the camps and ghettos of Eastern Europe. There were also more organized resistance groups, such as the French Armée Juive, or Jewish Army, a Zionist resistance movement in Nazi-occupied World War II France. It was created in January 1942 in the city of Toulouse, led by Abraham Polonsky. Their intention was to protect threatened Jews, and it was primarily concerned with helping Jews escape to Spain via the Pyrenees mountain range. At its height, it had more than 2,000 members. Later, the Armée Juive would go on to use their combat skills to defend the creation of Israel. Jewish resistance during the Holocaust was not restricted to the ghettos alone. Even in concentration camps, there were Jews fighting to escape and be freed from the Nazis. Unfortunately, most of these attempts were ill-fated from the start, and unsuccessful in the long run. However, there were some successful escapes that we still have record of today. There were 3 significant instances of Jewish uprisings and killing centers. The first two were similar in nature, one at Treblinka in August of 1943, and one at Sobibor in October of 1943. At Treblinka, Jewish prisoners had made a failed attempt at stealing weapons from the armory to take over the camp. What did happen successfully, though, was when the prisoners stormed the main gate of the camp, managing to break through. Samuel Willenberg, one of the only remaining survivors today, remembers that day. I ran to the anti-tank barriers because the barbed wire was already cut. The German machine guns were firing. I darted out and jumped on top of the dead bodies of my friends. They looked like statues. In the end, 300 Jews managed to escape, but only for a short while. 2/3 of them were eventually caught and killed. After the incident, the killing center at Treblinka was shut down later in the fall. At Sobibor, a similar success was achieved. A resistance group formed in early 1943, and when the uprising finally came, this group succeeded in killing several German officers. Similar to Treblinka, around 300 prisoners were able to escape once the revolt started, with about 100 being captured and killed. Most of the survivors, however, did not live to see the end of the war. The revolt at Sobibor also succeeded, similar to Treblinka, in dismantlement of the camp. The last revolt to note from the Holocaust took place at the most recognized of the killing centers, Auschwitz-Birkenau. This revolt was unique because it took place among the Sonderkommando. The Sonderkommando were a group of Jewish prisoners who worked for the Nazis in death camps, specifically to burn the dead bodies of other prisoners. They did receive slightly better conditions than the other prisoners, but the psychological damage was terrifying. In the fall of 1944, the members of the 12th Sonderkommando, mostly led by women, decided to revolt. They smuggled in as much gunpowder as they possibly could for the demolition. They also made small axes and knives, which they hid throughout the crematoria. Once revolt struck, several crematoria were damaged, many beyond repair. Several German officers were killed, and there was even one report of an officer being stuffed inside one of the ovens and burned. This occurred while the Soviet army was advancing on Poland, so most of the prisoners died soon after the revolt, unfortunately, in the infamous death marches, as they were being transported to a railway station 45 miles away to be sent to other camps. The Holocaust was a shocking time in history that the world will never forget. However, often forgotten are the people that fought for their right to be free, to live their life to the fullest. This video is dedicated to them. Thank you for watching.